Welcome back to Have You Heard, the podcast brought to you by The Social Shepherds. We are a social media marketing agency here in the UK and US, and today we've got lots to talk to you about, all about social, as we do every single week. My name's Jack Shepherd, one of the co-founders here at The Social Shepherd, so I'm excited to be on here with you today. And I'm also joined by...
Lucy, Influence Marketing Director.
And I'm Adam, Business Director.
Lovely to have you both on. So as of the order of the podcast, right at the beginning, we're going to go through some of the key topics that have happened over this last week in terms of updates on social and different channels. Then we've got some more interesting topics as well. One that Lucy's going to take us away on very, very shortly. We're going to give her the lead on that one because me and Adam probably know a bit less on that topic. But to kick off with, in terms of industry updates, first one we wanted to go through is a new website goal for YouTube promotions. So very much like boosted posts, being able to boost a post on Instagram, YouTube have recently come out with this new feature that allows creators to effectively boost a video or increase views, increase engagement on their channel. And the latest one that they've also brought out is website visits. So I think it's very much, whilst you've still got YouTube ads and the full sort of Google ads suite, how you would run traditional campaigns, much like you would have on Facebook ads as well. They've got their own version of boosted post where it's making it very much more simple for creators to put money behind their, videos, their channel itself, drive traffic to their website, drive traffic to grow their channel, increase engagement on that as well. So typically we have a lot of these where platforms copy other platforms' features. And as we know, they're all looking to drive more revenue, and probably a lot of creators that aren't sort of business orientated, aren't using the sort of intricacies of the YouTube ads sort of dashboard. They just want the simple way to boost a video, to boost their channel and grow from there. Secondly, again on YouTube as well, we have the Add Your sticker that Instagram already has. Again, another feature being copied from YouTube or from Instagram. So an Add Your sticker for YouTube Shorts specifically. So they've been testing this new feature with selected users for the past 2 months. Adam, I know you watch
I do.
A bit of YouTube,
Yeah.
Flick through Shorts from time to time. How do you think this may affect things or change things for Shorts?
Well, I mean, it's sort of just another dynamic, isn't it, to be able to add extra engagement or extra features and things like that. So I can see why you might want to have it. I think it's more interesting when brands copy or platforms copy to try and understand what the purpose is from their end, because some features you're just like, why you question, or why do you need it? What's it actually adding, and what's the user consumption? Like if there's a real purpose and uptake of it, then you can see why it might add value. But also sometimes I like YouTube Shorts or YouTube in general because it doesn't feel as cluttered and messy compared to some of the other platforms in terms of what content's being put out. Like I know Instagram's obviously a bit cleaner often, but I just find that I'm more engaged a lot of the time in YouTube Shorts because it's taken that kind of content takes such an inspiration from YouTube, or and then how do I get this like 20-minute video into 30 seconds or a minute, and you absorb information, where the others are so distinctive. And I think if you try and layer and layer and layer because this platform's doing it, it's a bit like are we doing it because they're just doing it and we should do it, or actually do we really need to? So I suppose it just, they're good features to have. We'll see what happens. But sometimes I just think, don't worry about what they're doing. If the user is using it for a reason and there's no need for it.
Yeah. It feels like they must have data points on that it positively impacting time spent on Shorts, time spent on the channel, positive sentiment with the platform. However they've got that, or due to the sheer fact that it's remained on Instagram, and Meta typically will test features and then pull them down if they're not working. But the fact that they've kept it going maybe it's an indication to other platforms like, oh, this is working, and gives them now the validation to then launch that feature on their own platform.
But you also, I just feel like you don't want to run the risk of having 10 of the same platform, you know, because they do all like, because you see the trends. Like, I know we've talked about it before when we've talked about like watch time or duration. Like, people go to different platforms for different reasons. The same way you watch different, like even outside of social media, like you go to Netflix for longer form content, you go to YouTube for sort of that informative mid-form content, but more sort of that UGC style. You go to TikTok for a quick hit. Instagram might be more inspirational. Like, that's cool. Have these brands or platforms that sit within a lane. You don't all have to copy each other, and it feels like one of them does something and goes, oh, everyone's just TikTok announced that 3-second videos are the best thing in the world, and then everyone goes, we just do 3-second videos, and it's like, well, that's not what you're there for, you know. It's okay to be slightly different because there are different ways that people consume, but if it's a simple feature, isn't it? It's not going to change the platform too much.
The way I've seen it being described is that Google as a business is known to be, and like as a media channel, very like bottom of the funnel. Like you use Google Ads to hoover up that search and that high intent user to then go and purchase a product. But now with like Shorts, Performance Max, they're trying to be more like Facebook, TikTok, to be that top of funnel aspect to it as well. Whereas everyone's only using their media just at bottom of funnel, but hopefully they're trying to capture more of like Facebook spend, the TikTok spend, and bring it to their platform. So again, just a feature, but I do agree with you and see your point on the sort of distinctiveness of each channel and having its purpose. Meta, on the other hand, is buying AR filters. So they announced that Spark Studio will be retiring in January 2025. And off the back of that, they've started getting in touch with filter owners to go and actually purchase their filters. But one of these potential issue with this is, you know, those filter creators, yes, they've gone and built that filter, but is it using copyrighted content elsewhere, or where's the original source of that piece of work that's been done by that person who's then created a filter out of it, and could that cause issues there? But it'd be interesting to see how AR continues to change and adapt, especially with them announcing that Spark Studio is going to retire as well.
Maybe this falls more into their I'll go and completely forget what it's called now. The old what's their
VR headset,
the VR headset, the metaverse stuff. Maybe that's part of the
such a buzzword a few years ago.
Yeah, I know, but maybe that's part of their process of like ownership of that space,
potentially.
And it might actually be a bit more strategic in terms of what things could corrupt or change it, or how do they monetize it better, which is, like you say, yes, it takes away from the people, takes away the creative side of it. But if they own it and they're creating in a more structured way, you can you can monetize it a bit more.
Definitely.
I don't know.
Definitely not.
I just don't feel like augmented reality is sort of taken off a bit, but not to the heights of like, the good ones I've seen are where you can, a lot of sports brands have it where you can like try their shoes on and stuff, and you can just do it. The simple ways of doing it, that bigger piece. I know obviously there's been some more ads recently in terms of out of home bits that sort of fall a bit into that sort of CGI AR space, but it doesn't.
I think all these things are great, but like for AR, you need everyone to have headsets or devices like in homes, and until that point, unless you can get critical mass on that, then. But it's useless.
But the fun used to be, was it like when Snapchat used to do the little fun ones with things like walking on your table, like those simple kind of bits of, like, I mean, that was super basic, but outside of that, it doesn't feel
laughs in those.
Exactly. But it doesn't feel like anybody's done anything.
I guess it's just like with wearable tech as well, isn't it? It's like, I feel like even when like Apple Watch first, is it called Apple Watch or iWatch? I still get confused by this,
Apple
but
Watch,
yeah, there we
Apple
go.
Watch, yeah.
Like when that first came out, it was quite a slow burner, and now it's super mainstream. And you've got all these like health, like is it the Aura? I don't know how do you pronounce it? The ring and everything,
yeah.
that thing and stuff. Like it's becoming. Society is starting to accept that a bit more. So I think with the VR side of things, it's like, great, there is potential with something like this, but it just needs to evolve over a few more years probably until it becomes super mainstream and acceppted by society. Because otherwise it's these giant headsets.
Vision Pros walking around. It's on all the time. Yeah, a bit odd.
Exactly.
And then finally, from an update perspective, looking at the industry, so Google has partnered with Wayback Machine. So Wayback Machine is the internet's archive, effectively. So it's the ability to look at previous versions of websites, of content that were previously online and obviously now being updated or even removed. So this new update will be integrated actually into Google search itself. So when you're first, scrolling down in search results, you'll be able to see, see previous versions from Wayback Machine. So you can see that's like indexed. This website was indexed 10 years ago, and you can actually see previous versions, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure how this will affect. I don't know if people will actually bother to look at previous versions, because ultimately the search results that you get on Google are Google likes to show fresh content that's relevant today and giving the user the best experience possible. So giving the user an out-of-date version, to me, doesn't make sense, in my opinion, as to why they would want to show previous versions.
Yeah, weird. I don't know. I guess I've used Wayback Machine before.
Yeah.
For once upon a time when I was a blogger and trying to see.
Let's find it. Let's use it to find it.
Absolutely not. Just to for whatever reason, see that in the past and stuff.
See your old. I guess, so you wanted to see your blog.
I don't know why. I don't know. I was
what
probably
was I
bored one day. I had nothing going on. Exactly. I don't know. I guess it just comes down to user intent with something like that. Like there must be data to suggest why they've integrated something like that, and think that would be valuable for certain users. But I guess off the cuff of it, I don't know. I feel like that would be more appealing if you're like a brand and you want to see previous versions of a competitor website or something like that. But for most users, I don't know. I'd love to
fact checking type thing.
Can you use it like the old version?
No, I think you just kind of see a version of it. It captures a period in time of that website. You don't see everything. Right. I don't think you can navigate it, but I could be wrong.
So it might be quite fun in the fact that nostalgia is a big thing, and if you could almost go onto a current website but then reskin it with the old, still the current information, but you almost can navigate it through an old skin, so it just looks like the early 2000s version of it or whatever, but even then you're just doing it from a bit of a...
just thinking about with something like Twitter or X, and how I guess if you are an influencer, a celebrity of sorts, and often what tends to happen these days is you are advised to probably go and remove anything you may have published in the past. But I guess for those people who are those kind of internet sleuths or whatever you call them, who want to find out, how can I cancel this person? This is dreadful. Please do. I don't advocate this or anything necessarily. But I don't know. I guess does it open up?
Point. It's interesting.
Is there capability to look at things like that as well? I have no idea. People have too much time on their hands if they're doing that. If I'm honest with you,
thousands of tweets or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. I never thought of
TBC.
Yeah. So moving on to the highlights of the week, so outside of industry news and updates to platforms specifically, we obviously look broader than that on what's happening in the agency world, influencer world, outside and in social, and topics of conversations. One that we wanted to kick off with is with Lucy here, is one that you mentioned the other day, and a lot of the team looked a bit confused. But it is Addison Rae, one of the OG TikTokers. She has released a new song, Diet Pepsi, and we actually did a bit of research into looking. Obviously, she's named her song after a brand, and did that have any impact on Pepsi itself and search results for Diet Pepsi? There has been some, significant increase, but the debate is, does that actually have any brand value at all? Because the result that they're looking for is actually the song rather than the product. So I'm not sure about that. How have you sort of thought about this? Obviously, her move into singing and music.
I would just like to clarify, this is not her debut single.
Okay, sorry.
She did have a song called Obsessed, which was her debut single. She had her EP, AR, which is a very good EP. And this is
And
her
she's
first...
got a world tour coming soon.
As she should. This is her first debut single with a major label. She's been signed by Columbia, who also have like Adele and Harry Styles.
Yeah, it's
so good for her.
Yeah.
I think that's mega if she's being signed to something like that. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure Diet Pepsi or Pepsi the brand must have had to have some kind of agreement with her to have their name featured in this song in some capacity, surely, because otherwise that's a trademark.
Yeah,
exactly. I have no idea whether they have or not, but I'm assuming surely it's only a positive. It just keeps them relevant.
It's true.
Okay, like I appreciate she was super, super popular a couple of years ago when she was one of the first TikTokers who really blew up. Okay, sure, these days people are a bit skeptical of her. There are certain people who say rather nasty things about her online, which I do not stand for. I'm just here for the music, everyone. But I don't know, I just think... like the song itself is really popular on like TikTok at the moment and everything. So like it's getting out there. I don't know if it necessarily is kind of doing loads of promotion as such for the brand.
Sure.
But it's somehow being featured within a bit of a online space where, I don't know, I guess people are engaging with content with that song and what have you, and somewhat engaging with her. I don't know.
No, I like music is very much a part of all forms of culture as well, and many artists reference brands, drinks, cars, fashion, all sorts, which ultimately does have an impact on driving growth and driving revenues.
It's just about being relevant within culture itself, isn't it?
And I guess if it's being adopted on likes of TikTok, I don't know if I don't know if content is being included. The product is being included in those TikToks at all.
No, not necessarily.
It's not necessarily. No. Okay, so it's just a reference of the. Because I was thinking, then you're getting lots of like just product placement and eyes on.
It's an interesting one in terms of like the impact, something like that, in the search volume, because let's not forget that Pepsi had a massive increase in search volume when one of the was it Kendall Jenner or one of them did that terrible advert around, and gave the Pepsi to the policeman, and then it was taken down because they had just misread the room. Because obviously a Pepsi can stop all forms of hatred. And that was like a huge spike in brand search and all of that kind of stuff, and trending for different reasons. So it'll be interesting. The longer term search is one thing, but what the impact on like sales and revenue and stuff like that is completely different. But to your point around having the brand in and whether or not they've had a partnership, if you go way back, there's a wonderful story of I think it's Jay-Z back when he in his early years of rapping, when culturally, or like people who obviously were listening to rap music in the like early 90s were drinking a bit like what Hennessy is now, but like a specific Scotch whiskey, and they went to the brand in Scotland and asked if they could mention them in the song, and obviously these old Scottish boys went, no, because we don't want to be associated with that kind of music and that culture. So Jay-Z brought the brand and then made it into like a massive thing, but because he just started mentioning it in his music. So there's, Pepsi's too big for...
I guess in fairness, the Pepsi have always actually been involved in some respect with like music, and I think particularly for a younger audience, they've somehow tried to find a way of being featured within that kind of culture. Like early 2000s, Pepsi did an ad with Britney,
I knew you were gonna say
Beyonce,
Britney then. Yeah.
Pink, Enrique Iglesias. I feel like there was someone else, maybe Shakira. And that was like a mega moment
Yeah.
for the likes of me. But they just the other day, I'm pretty sure this is what's happened. They've done almost like another version of that ad in that kind of like gladiator setup. And the new gladiator.
Is it Megan Thee Stallion?
Potentially. I know Travis Kelce is in it. And it's kind of like, well, he's like popular at the moment, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure they found a way in being involved in this one. It's literally like one mention Addison Rae has of Pepsi in this song.
But the song is called, what's the song
It's called Diet Pepsi.
Right, what's the ref? So that's it. It's just
She sings one chorus.
Is that it?
No.
With
I'm
Diet
not going to say the lyrics because I feel uncomfortable.
Okay. What's the song about though? Or what's the reference to Diet Pepsi in it? Just
the line is something along the lines of sitting on his laps drinking Diet Pepsi.
Oh right.
Yeah, that's it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great song. It's a vibe. It's very Lana Del Rey.
Give it a listen.
Yeah.
You should.
Can we have it play
Office
on the outro of this video,
Yes.
and then we can just seamlessly blend it into the music video. I've not seen it. I don't know.
It's incredible. I think she's going to be a big moment for everyone.
All right.
I'll have a listen after this and tell you what I think.
Wish her all the best with it. No, it sounds.
Wish her all the best with like she's your mate.
No, it's great to see that like you can start out as just a creator and all this can come and the sort of signing of the big music label
Real
and stuff
zero
like
to
that.
hero.
It really reminds me of when Heidi Montag from The Hills did an album. Anyone remember that?
No.
Sorry.
Good album.
We need to follow your music taste.
Absolutely.
I think.
I was walking in this morning listening to a Spotify recommended Addison Rae mix. That was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I'll put it on the speaker shortly.
All right. Then. Right. Next one. So, big one that's being discussed a lot on LinkedIn and one of our main topics of today. It's all about agencies and how they're approaching the pitching situation and how brands and agencies it's a part of our industry. It's an expected thing to do, but there's a lot of changes coming with it. Some people are, opposed to pitching and believe because of the amount of resource, the time, should they be paid for it? Should they not? Should they not even pitch at the beginning?
Yeah.
But one of the most recent reports that's come out is that the cost of a pitch has gone up 26% year over year. So obviously the cost of a pitch is discussing mainly the resource required, the time. Naturally, it's going to increase year over year. You've got salaries going up, cost of living going up, everything like that. But 26% is definitely significant. One part of that people are also discussing is a lot of agencies are now going just for larger opportunities and focusing their energy and time on one. When they do put all that resource in, they want to go for larger opportunities because then the payoff is obviously bigger in the long run for them. You could go for energy all in one, that's the same value as two, but if you can win that one, it's better off than maybe winning one of those two. So with that, I think naturally when things become larger pitches, it's more competitive. You're going up against bigger, agencies that are also putting in more time. So the time then we have to put into it also increases. Where do you see the sort of adding the sort of state of pitching and the sort of agency brand relationship when it comes to pitching at the moment, and why things might be getting more expensive?
Yeah.
And
It's that when you talk about the increase in percent, is that just the cost of resource, or was that the time?
It's discussing. Obviously, there is going to be some increase to other parts to it, but
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. I suppose it's sort of like how you cut that one. 15 years of doing this kind of stuff and looking back, like I remember being in pitches where the amount, it wasn't just time but money. Like they would check, like I pitched on the pitch team for Nintendo once, and they literally converted the office into a Mario racetrack, you know, laminated the floors, big cutouts, like loads of Nintendos and all that kind of bought into it. Yeah, it was amazing.
Insane, yeah.
But it was the theatre and the drama that also went into the response to the pitch as well. I mean, the budgets for those felt like they were a lot bigger as well. So maybe the balance had paid off. We weren't successful in winning that, but again, like that was almost a bit of a norm when you went into these environments of doing it.
Yeah.
Look, it's a really hard one because I think it comes down to brief and what brief you're getting. I think sometimes the nature of briefs are, I wouldn't necessarily say they're badly written, but they're asking for so much. Like you're ultimately, you read a brief sometimes and it's like, change my business in 60 minutes. Tell me how you're going to do all of this stuff. And yes, there's a task of the agency to determine how we can most effectively answer that question in 60 minutes. But also there's an expectation, I think, from brands of how much they want to see, because often then the question, if you go in at sort of like, right, we'll give them 50%, we'll tease them a bit, we'll give them enough that shows that we can deliver, we know what we're talking about and we can do it. Often the questions that come back from the brand are, well, we need more detail on this, or we need this and we need this. And you're like, well, now we're actually doing work where we're giving away IP and thinking for potentially no payoff. So it's almost so I suppose there's part is like, can you solve the problem by reducing or having a bit more of a structure to the brief, which is, you know, realistically you're asking a partner to work with you on potentially solving a big problem. And if it's not like a really specific thing, like just do X, it's, you know, it's, if you take anything else, you know, if you're having an extension built, you get someone to come around and look at the space, they give you a rough design and an idea. You might get 3 or 4 people that do that, and then you decide to work with them. They don't give you the full plans and spend all the time doing all the development and all the investment into the architecture and all of that kind of stuff. You do that together. So it's almost, for me, would be an argument. How do you get that? How do we get into a room with the 6 people you might want to speak to, where the brief is enough to demonstrate we're the right fit, and here's a bit to answer.
Yeah.
And now, if we are the right fit for you, let's go on that journey together. Not up front say, give me everything, and then we're going to say yes or no. You know, you've got 1 in 6 chance of winning this. You know, there's 5 disappointed agencies that have spent a shed load of resource into working on it, and then they get nothing back. It's just, no, we're not going to, you're not right for us. All right, well, it's you know, it's nature tricky. Of the beast to an extent, but also it's, you know,
the clarity of what they were looking for. Like in that there was the Pitch Positive Pledge, like organization did the future of the pitch report last year, and it discovered that 81% of agencies and 74% of brands didn't believe that the traditional pitch process is like a representation of what then the brand, what is the relationship is going to look like, or like how it's going to work for that agency. You might get a response from an agency that ticked all your boxes there, but then actually what it's like to then work with them is completely different. And then obviously there's a part of that report also that talks about like the ethical and sort of responsible business practices, because you're asking for so much, almost to a degree of basically paid for work, or it should be. Obviously agencies are more so on this side than brands are as well. And I think there's also an important point about sort of respecting the time that it takes agencies to deliver this. Sometimes you do work, you know, go through these processes where brands do give really fair, honest, thorough feedback, but then other times you can literally get 2 sentences which provides no feedback whatsoever. I know we've done a pitch before which, you know, they've sort of also sort of gone against what they've said previously, and they're like, well, your feedback, I don't know how you've come to that feedback. Obviously I don't say this, but like, I don't know how you've come to this feedback when you've said the complete opposite, written just 2 weeks prior. So there can be some frustrating parts from like an agency perspective. I think if someone's only worked solely in a brand, it's hard for them to maybe see the time and energy and the ask that they are putting in that brief what actually.
Because I was going to say, like, how do you think it's got to this point where agencies now are having to kind of go somewhat even more above and beyond? There's an expectation of really kind of like going all in with it. How have we got to that point?
Well, I think it's probably like the increase in the number of agencies.
Yeah,
like competition is hard. Like there's a lot. Like you probably, I don't know when they started doing these things, but 20 years ago, you had the big ones, that being BBH's, WPP, whatever. They weren't as big as they are now, but they were in and around the mix. But it was and also you didn't have. I don't think you had such a breadth of skill sets and requirements. It was very TV out of home, print, so all of these. All of those brands or things, it was arguably, relatively samey. This is our TV ad. This is what it looks like in print. This is, out of home or whatever it is, and posters. And it was pretty. You could probably have a team that sort of deliver, that kind of message. Then all of a sudden, you've got the internet creeps in, social media creeps in. It's not just a big agency anymore. It's the competition is. Big agency is now competing with, 6 young techie people, but they're really good at Google or ads or whatever, this response, like this specific thing. Obviously those big agencies then start buying them because they need that skill set, but then more independents pop up. So I think you're kind of dealing in a busier market with more competition. So therefore you need to outshine and prove that you're, I suppose, as good as or a better option than the big ones, maybe. And I think just, there's that I wouldn't call it desperation, but that puts a rocket to go, what we're going to do that's different, how we're going to stand out. I
also think as agencies, we know we've only got like a finite amount of resource. Yeah. And so that does make you it has to force you into being more selective as well. So if you've got 5 opportunities across a particular month, but we can only go for 2, we're going to go for the 2 biggest and best ones.
Give it everything.
And then everyone else is doing exactly the same as a part of that.
It's also, I suppose, as well, like, again, maybe an extreme phrase, but every pitch for a business is business critical, right? Like, because you always want to grow and you don't want to stagnate. So,
you can't.
So therefore, again, like, if you always have, if we're going to do it, we've got to do it. Like, once you made the decision to commit, and I think across the board, but that's also, again, back to, I think, the first point of the briefs that you get and you read sometimes, you're like, you're literally asking me to solve every single problem. How can we cover? We actually cannot cover all of this in 60 minutes, but we're gonna do it, or whatever it is. And
it's
then
like
you
a 3-6 month piece of work.
Exactly. And as opposed to, I think you sort of, like, say, if you simplified that, and it's like, if you read between the lines of a brief, like, what things do you want us to demonstrate really that we can do? We should, for argument's sake, on a brief, demonstrate to us that you're strategic, you're creative, and you understand this. Because ultimately, if you can do those things, you're probably well suited to answer our bigger question, which we'll deal with when we work together. Whereas what happens is you almost try and do the full 5-year strategy up front, and then to the point you just made, when you start working together, it looks nothing like that. But you've almost shot yourself in the foot, because you've said, well, we're going to do all of this stuff for you, and then you start working together and you're like, well, wait a minute, we can't do it all, or whatever. And I think, so across the board, it sort of needs to be a general agreement of what is there, maybe a criteria of, these are the things that a pitch should look like. the other, I suppose the other one to add to that as well, to your point around how, is when you've got all these people, again, I don't know the ins and outs of how it used to be all the time, but relationships I think are really important. Like a lot of work might have come in the past through, you know, I played golf with so-and-so or whatever it was, or I met him down the Groucho, or, you know, the new head of, you know, X, she's great. I saw her, met her at the wedding at a weekend, and we've got chatting, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, we need you. We could help. You could help us, and you have more of an organic, as opposed to a show and tell. Now you don't. People don't have that connection. So the first point of prove yourself to me is 2 phone calls to iron out the brief, and then stand in front of me and dance monkey, tell me that you're the best one, as opposed to, maybe we build a relationship and I trust you a bit. Let's have a go at it. It's all very, very formal and structured.
I don't think it's like for like, but the point around like, should brands pay agencies? It reminds me of the conversations around job interviews and the recruitment process, where there's lots of brands at the moment, or historically, they ask for like, give me a full strategy as your interview task or whatever. And again, it's like the individual is essentially having to give away so much of their own time and work for a job interview. Again, these are not like for like things, but there are similarities there. I don't know how you'd ever get to a point where a brand would pay an agency to do pitch work for them, because there's that whole thing around like, well, it's just simply expected. And it's likewise, if you're applying for a job, you're not really ever going to get paid necessarily to interview, are you?
I just interview all the time.
But what then? I think
freelance.
That
made a career out of interviewing.
Oh Lord. But I know that conversation around the recruitment process is around, actually, do we just need to rethink what is being requested in a job interview for candidates to show their capabilities? And it's actually like, it should be a bit more streamlined, and it shouldn't be as in depth or whatever. So it's again a point maybe around, if you are pitching, does there just need to be a more generalized conversation around like what actually needs to be delivered at pitch stage? But it is so different for every business, and whatever specialism you need an agency support for.
It's hard. Like you can understand. Like it's hard as well. Like we for us, digital, social, it moves so quick, right? Like, so you're making a commitment. Like you've got to make sure that it's the right.
Yeah.
You know, because if it goes wrong, you've got to start all over again. And that's a headache for brand side, because you don't want, like, if you've got plans and ambitions, you kind of want to get it right. So I get that you want to see a lot, but also it's not right to, I don't think, to ask people to give you almost a full. Look, we're doing one at the moment, and when we got that brief in, we were like, they're literally asking for that same model. But when we spoke to them, we were like, we can't do that, like, in the time that you're asking us to go and present that. So here's what we would, which they seemed all right with. So I think it's again,
the honest
like,
conversation.
Yeah, we can't commit to giving you a 5-year plan with so much detail and intricacies, because it's just, you know, the alternative is, I suppose, if you want to go down that route, rather than paying, if you do end up stealing any of our stuff, we as an agency have the right to,
that has happened,
go back and say, wait a minute, we pitched that idea, or we've given you this and you've now gone and done it.
But I think brands have been sued for that.
Well,
I think that's happened.
Yeah.
In bigger cases.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a safe way to. I don't think you'll ever solve it, because you either industry wide have to find a solution for it, but it still needs to be competitive. Otherwise, it gets a bit. But I do feel it would be easier to simplify. Like, really consider, what are you, to your point, interview process. Like, what are we trying to identify? You know, we're committing to work with you, like any relationship. of course you're going to have a couple of dates up front, but it's not just about what they look like. It's, do you share my values? Can we do the same stuff together and go on this journey? There's got to be a better way of getting to that point than doing a full. You imagine a date being like that and someone turning up on the first date and you had to present your entire life and what 5 years look
Your
like.
future plan,
You're just talking at them. It's easy for someone to go, I didn't like that one.
Yeah, exactly.
That one thing, and so it's a no, or go with this one, or whatever. Whereas actually, the whole point of
what a dry process that would be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's my pitch, and but I just think it's about relationship building. That's got to be the core. Yeah.
I mean, we'd love to hear it from anyone that's listening, whether you work brand side, agency side, how you find it from your own perspective, whether you've been a part of pitches or about to put something out to pitch in the future, like how this conversation can hopefully shape how they take it forward as well. Anything else to add on this one? Or
I think we're done now.
Yeah. Right, let's get back into that pitch that we're submitting very shortly. Yeah. Well, thanks guys for joining me today, and thanks everyone for listening. Wherever you are, please make sure to subscribe, as again, we do put these out every single week. So hopefully you'll see our faces again. If not, definitely some of our team members here at the Social Shepherd. So make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you very, very soon.